delegate. I hope I'm audible. Uh, am I audible? Okay, yeah, because it is not showing.
Yes, ma'am. Audible, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so we were in the process of working with ARIMA models. So now we have a few more concepts are to be discussed, are to be worked on in the same set, in the same process. So, and also last class we just saw how the template has to be prepared. So let us just see how we can prepare a proper template and get the work done. A normal procedure or a normal write-up for a, for a financial or an economic analysis data can be, we usually write the. Okay, I think I'll be taking this file, I'm not very sure. Okay, so here, normally what we do is we will have the methodology written. So in the methodology, we will state what is the model and what are we preparing, what are we planning to analyze. So basically, we know that in ARIMA model estimation is the process that we will be working in this particular analysis. And ARIMA model estimation is to uh, to model the trend, to model the trend of a data, model the trend of a data or of a series, so that it helps us in, in forecasting, it helps us in preparing for forecasting, or it helps us in giving us the prediction for upcoming series also. So we are using the behavior, we are analyzing the behavior of the series so far, and using that information we are trying to come up with values of the future. So a few of the concepts I think requires a little more touch up, because I got a few feedback as such about that. Plus another feedback that I got was I need to reduce the speed of the work. So we will quickly do one more time ARIMA modeling. Not quickly, we will peacefully do an ARIMA model and try to understand what are the points that we need to ponder into, and also a few extra points that I had not explained in the last session. Okay, so give me a moment's time. I think my charger isn't connected. Uh, Now I would like all of us to start with eViews. We can progress to eViews. I think I'm sharing the right screen. Yeah. Okay, so eViews, in eViews, let us just take one of the files which is there in Gretel repository itself, called DJ Dow Jones closing, or else, oh no, we will first work with another one, that is SW chapter 14, unemployment and inflation. Unemployment and inflation, SW chapter 14, unemployment and inflation. Let's see how this series will be, and let us also see how we need to analyze it. Give me one moment, I'll just switch on my charger by then. Yeah, I could do that. Okay. Otherwise, in between, I'll not realize when the power drains off. Okay. So here we, first of all, with any, yes, ma'am, I shall. Once I write it completely, I shall share the file. Okay. So first of all, we would like to, any analysis we perform, we should have a basic descriptive analytics to be done. So this is just a data that is about the unemployment rate of 16 years. So when we double click, we can see the data how it is. Okay. Apart from that, if you want to see a time series plot or summary statistic, from right click itself we can get the summary statistics. So the summary statistics of a series is actually very essential. It helps us to, it actually conveys a lot of information. Summary statistics itself says about the normality of the data and lot of points, lot of information about the data, whether the data is conducive for use, all that can be obtained here. Okay, so this is, I think I have mixed up the series. Okay. That's fine. Okay, so this is a particular data which talks about 59 to 99, that is 40 years. Okay, so this is 40 years. I think it is quarterly data. Okay, 40 years price of daily. I mean, 40 years LHUR unemployment rate data. Unemployment rate data is analyzed, and in the statistic, okay, that part we will all be able to write what is the series about. So when it comes to the summary statistics, it is needed that we have to first of all write what are the summary statistics. So we can always write the summary statistics values 5.9951. Along with that, median and minimum maximum, even if we avoid, it is not a problem. But writing standard deviation is very, very essential, because ideally standard deviation and mean should be always coupled together. Mean alone, if you explain, it does not give a clear picture of the series. Mean alone of any data for that matter, do not explain mean alone. It should always be coupled with, if possible, all four measures, that is skewness, kurtosis, and the other two. Okay, so here the skewness value is 0.5, 0.5985, and kurtosis value is not CV, it is skewness, and the kurtosis value is 0.42. So basically, whenever your standard deviation is 1/3 and below, or say 1/4 and below mean, we can say that it is very good data. The data is consistent. There is no too much of dispersion in the data. So the mean, when the mean is 5 and standard deviation is 1 point, that is an ideal situation. When the mean is 5.9951 with a standard deviation of 1.41, it's quite low when compared to arithmetic mean. Not generally, I'm not talking generally. When compared to arithmetic mean, let your standard deviation be quite low, like 1/4 or 1/3 less. That simple meaning, if your mean is 10, let your standard deviation be 4 or below. Then you can consider the data to be good. This is not a hard and fast rule. There are many situations wherein it doesn't happen like that. But that is one of the conditions which will say that the data is consistent, the series is consistent. There isn't too much of volatility in the data. There is too much of variation in the data. There isn't too much of variation. Skewness and kurtosis at the same time helps us to identify normality of a data to a great extent. Skewness value very close to 3, and a kurtosis, a skewness value very close to 0, and a kurtosis value close to 3. These are all indicators of normality. So we can generally have a write-up about all these values. Instead of simply writing once again all those numbers, it is always preferable that we write comments about these numbers. Then we can then the next work. So having seen the descriptive statistics, having understood it is conducive for use, next what we can do is we can proceed to see or visualize our data for checking its stationarity. Okay, right. That is how we generally proceed to see stationarity. For stationarity, normally we will just see the series, how it is. We can see the time series plot, right? From the time series plot, we can get a clue about how it is, whether the series is proper or not. Now, these kind of work when we do, it is better that if we can just put it in a table format, if we can side by side align it, it is easy for us and also for the viewers to see how it is varying. Like this is for a level, the series line graph of the series at level, right? Now if the series is just differenced and taken, so I'll just add the differenced series, first difference, and then plot it. How does it look? Time series plot. Yeah, it looks kind of, not very sure, but from the graph we are not able to as such understand whether there is a stationarity or not, but still it seems to be a little better. Okay, at least it has come closer to 0. Obviously whenever we take difference, the numbers tend to come closer to 0. Okay, now so that is the second part of our analysis, to identify what is the value of D. Basically that is how we do it. So the line graph here, there is no trend as such, but there is variation in the data. Okay, there is a slight increment, that's all. Now when we proceed to check, so we are not able to come to a common conclusion or a proper conclusion whether there is difference in the data, whether the data is stationary or not. We are not able to come to a proper conclusion about its stationarity. We are not able to come to a proper conclusion about stationarity. Hence, what we do, we will, as usual, check with our ADF test. ADF or KPSS, both tests can be considered. So this is a series which doesn't have trend. The series did not have trend. Basically, we refer to line graph for two reasons. One, to see if it is stationary and we are able to understand. Sometimes we will be able to get a clue about stationarity if it is very close to the mean value and there is no trend. Second reason why we draw the line graph is to check whether there is stationarity. Okay. Don't know whether there's a lot of disturbance all on a sudden. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So what we were saying, yeah. So whether there is any stationarity, I mean whether there is any problem with respect to a trend, that also can be analyzed. So this is a series where there isn't much of a trend, right? Here it is quite easy to understand that there is no trend. So I went with the one which doesn't have trend. So how we generally present the ADF test is in a single table, right? In a single table we can present it like this. So only the t statistic value we need to present. At level means at level means the raw data. We already have seen it quite a number of times. So here we had a confusion with respect to lag. So the reason or the law rule of thumb for taking lag is, as I mentioned, it is like it's not 1/3, it is cube root of the data set. Okay, normally the algorithm itself is set for it, cube root of a data. So if you have say 64 observations, 8 will be the lag. I mean, if you have not 60, then 4 will be the lag. Okay. So like that, if it just goes with cube root ideally, but if you want to vary little bit, you can vary it that side, this side. Normal work, how most of the softwares will go will be like that. Okay. Then when we proceed, now the values are at difference. Right now they are not at difference. Did I take that difference? No, I took the raw data. I took the raw data and I found out the unit root test. Without, I mean, with constant, without trend. So it was minus 2.8217 and the other one. Now, as we see that there is unit root present in it, we are checking with the first difference. So first difference might mostly have unit, I mean, will have what do you call, first difference should be having, yeah, it is having stationarity, because at first difference you are getting the value as minus 5.2662 with the p value which is very small. In fact, it is 0. After 6 zeros only it is coming, so we can write it as 5.64 into, not necessary, okay, you, if it is SPSS it will give us 0.00 only, so don't get confused. Some of the into power minus 6, or instead you can write it just like that as 0.0000, that is enough, which is less than 0.05. This will be sufficient. Okay. And then the same thing when we are presenting, when we are preparing it, reporting it, you can say that the time series as such is not stationary at level. So the t statistic and p value, here we are writing the reason why we said unit root is present or there is no stationarity. That reason we are mentioning over here. Okay. That is minus 2.8217 and p value 0.05. So these parts are all very clear to all of us. We did it quite enough number of times. I'm sure we know that. And the second part, it is accepted because the value is less than 0.05. It is less than, that is enough. P value is less than 0.05 with a statistic value minus 5.2662. Okay. So next our work will be to, so we have got the value of D in our ARIMA PDQ model. D is achieved or D is identified. We could identify the value of D in this estimation process. Next, we need to decide on the parameters of AR and MA. That is the next task. How to identify the parameters of AR and MA. So we have to obtain the correlogram of the graph, sorry, of the series. So get the correlogram of the series, right click and then correlogram is also fine. We don't have to go from the variable menu. We can get it from right click on the variable and get the correlogram. This is also kind of okay. Fine. The series as such will have slight issues. Okay, that's okay. Let us learn the process, however. I'll tell you why there are problems are. So here what we find is we find kind of two lags in PACF which are significant, whereas ACF is having an exponential decay. You can find dampening of the series slowly. It doesn't show one or two significant spikes. Yes. The database that we are using here is Gretel repository. Yes, someone has asked me about which is the data repository. Let me just display it. I will not switch again. I am here only. It is under Gretel repository. Towards the end, we have SW chapter 14, unemployment and inflation, Stock and Watson. SW, yeah, okay. And Q equal to 0. Yes, yes. The message, who gave that message, that is perfectly right. Dr. Anil Kumar has identified it correctly as P is equal to 2 and Q equal to 4. Most probably it should work. Okay, it might work, it need not. Most of the time it will work. So rarely only it will deviate from what we expect. So there are a lot of windows. Let me close all unnecessary ones and then come to Gretel graph. So this Gretel graph, let us copy to the clipboard and paste it here and say that. So we are going to go with P equal to 2. The PACF graph has two significant spikes and at lag 1, and hence P is equal to 2. And for AR component, but I hope it's clear. PACF, which is specifically for AR component, ACF, which is for MA component. ACF graph has an exponential decay pattern. This has an exponential decay pattern. Hence, we are proceeding with ARIMA 210 model as the first trial. Okay. Now, here, usually what is done or usual pattern is we don't use complete data for analysis. Normal, be it analytics, be it other fields of study, usual process is you have something called train data and test data. The training data will be used for generation or estimation of the model, and test data will be used to check the validity of the model. Okay, normal process is like 70% is used to train the machine or to train the data, train the software with respect to this particular data. Using the data, we will perform the estimation. Yeah, one minute, Nitish Kumar sir, just a moment. So 70% of the data can be kept aside for model construction and 30% we can use for our estimation. For testing whether our model is correct, that is one option, or else you can even take it as 80-20. Those are the normal normal rule of thumb with which we work. Yeah, someone was asking me why Q equal to 0. Usually when your ACF graph has a pattern of a dampening curve like this or an exponential decay in its correlogram, ACF correlogram or the correlogram function of ACF, autocorrelation function, we consider that there is no MA component in it and there is only AR component in it, and AR here it is throwing two significant spikes, so we are proceeding with it. That is why we wrote it as AR 2 and MA 0 at first difference. Okay, fine. So now let us see how to get this data set. Okay, so there is under sample menu. So what are we going to do? We are going to keep aside a little bit of numbers for casting and we are going to go with only the remaining series. So what is that chat? What is the reason of this decaying graph? The reason of the decaying graph could be that two reasons are there. One of it, sometimes there may be a seasonal component playing in it. Another reason is that there is so much of volatility in the data that ARIMA model is a mean model. ARIMA model is generally a mean model. It is to model mean of a series. So when there is too much of volatility, it might not be it might not be reflected in this mean model. In such cases, after preparing the ARIMA model, you can also side by side prepare the volatility model, wherein you can capture the variations in it. Okay. The reason for this decaying graph, basically what it means is there is a strong correlation between these residuals. Okay, I'll also show what are residuals. These residuals are interrelated between them so very strongly that they themselves are going ahead as a model. But it is not worth an analysis because almost all of them are at the same level. They are highly correlated. So they don't have a specific, there is no meaning in going to so very past, so very long a past and then trying to model it. Whereas how to model volatility, we will come to it in Garsh model probably tomorrow. We'll be able to do it. Yeah, seasonality we will do it, Professor Nitish Kumar. We'll do it. We'll complete this process and then we'll try with seasonality in it. Yeah. So what I was saying is how to set aside a little bit of sample and then set the range for it. So we are trying to have a holdout sample and then a test sample. So here we can see that under the menu of sample, there is an option of set range. Okay, click on that and let us decide, maybe we can take up till 95 or 94. We can keep 5 numbers aside. Few of the numbers can be kept aside and we can proceed with it. Okay, as such the same series we have to use it for some other analysis also. So let me for time being, let us take up to say 89 4. Okay, it's actually a quarterly data. I'm just using it for the analysis purpose. So we have set aside the data. In the sense, we have set a range for the data. Starting we didn't change. End date, instead of having the entire series up till 99, we have restricted for model estimation to only 89. Remaining there are 10 more points to come, or say 10 more years, 4 points to come. So maybe this is a little too much. So I'll keep it 94. That will be better. Otherwise the graph may not look very neat. I kept it up till 94 4. Okay. Now we are going to proceed with the construction, or we are going for the model estimation. So we identified the model to be 210. Okay, let's see whether it will work. Okay, can we proceed? Hope all are here in ARIMA model. Yeah, in this. So here we are taking LH, unemployment rate, and let us see if it works. Oh no, I missed out. It shows actually an MA component to be significant. Even an MA component, I'll just make a note of that AIC value. Let's see, 47.485. We'll see. It was by mistake I took that. Univariate, I don't know. MA component, it just came in. Let me see if it would. It says only one AR component is significant, but AIC is higher. See, AIC with an MA component was 47 only. Now see the AIC value is 50.159. That means in this trial and error, we are supposed to also include one value of MA, one component of MA. I hope you noticed that when I took MA component, it was lesser. Okay, for the time being, let us go with this, or let us just check. Okay, let's go with the same thing. We'll not change. Okay, we'll not change it for now. I just want to indicate how our this one changes. One moment. LHUR. Okay, so we got it this way. What do we find here? AR2 component is first coefficient is phi1, second coefficient is phi2. The model indicates that first coefficient is positive and its value, that is this spike on the left, that is a positive autoregression, autocorrelation function, and it is significant because it is significant at 1% level. The 3 stars indicate it is significant at 1% level. But when we consider the second autoregressive term, which is negatively correlated, it doesn't show any significance. Okay, and also, so immediately after that is one indication which indicates that this model is as such not going to be conducive for us. Okay, then we also confirm that what is the AIC, we also check what is the AIC value here. So the AIC value, just let us make a note of it, it is 50.15905. Okay, let it be. Now along with this, there is one more part that we can check, which is called analysis, and go for forecasts. Going ahead with forecasts, here the forecast range, if you notice, it is automatically set from 95 to 99, the points that we had left out. Okay, we had segregated the data only from 1st to 94. So 95 onwards it is coming up here for forecast. So this forecast values, there will be indications using error bar. Okay, it will be or else we can change it. If the, what is the confidence interval, what is the difference, or what is the range within which it might vary, you can either go with error bar or we can go with a shaded region. Okay. Yeah, I'll just show how I reached this box. That's the question, how I reached this box. We are in the output window. In the output window, analysis, forecast. In the output window, analysis and then forecast. Okay. So there, by default, it will select if there are left out samples, like means hold out sample we call it, or the test data if it is there, it will. And by default it will go for error bars. A shaded region will be little more better than seeing the error bars. Error bars are also fine, not a problem. Okay, automatically it will go with dynamic sampling for dynamic forecast for the forecast process. It will go with dynamic and static forecast. How it varies is I'll come to it. Okay, out of the sample I'll just come to it after explaining this. After seeing the graph we will come to it. Yeah, so this is our forecast prediction. LHUR is the actual data, prediction is here, second block. I hope it's visible to all. We get two windows as we go for this analysis. Okay, this graph window shows that it's kind of a proper fit for the model. Whatever we have got is kind of proper fit, not yet time to fix it. So what do you find in this last block is our holdout sample or the test data where the fitting has happened. So you can see that actually the data was going with this orange line. I think so. LHUR is green. Sorry, the green line was standing for unemployment rate. The green line indicates the actual data. Our forecast after a certain point just went on like that. Okay, so forecast and actual values aren't fitting that very well. This is also an indication that the model is not as such suitable. I keep on repeating that none of the time series analysis is a one-time job. Like it is not like finding mean or median of a series. We are trying to find the best fit model for any series. So it requires few steps of trial and error. Then why Box-Jenkins method, why Box-Jenkins procedure, why are we referring to P and Q? Roughly at least we'll get an idea. That's it. Roughly at least we'll have a clue which is the range where it lies. Whether there is any autocorrelation itself for the analysis. Such kind of information we will be able to get from Box-Jenkins procedure, where we refer to correlogram, but it need not give us the exact perfect model. Okay, it is just one step closer to the getting the best fit model. Okay, I hope we had a look at it. Now instead of this graph, if you are going with error bar graphs, it is slightly different. So what the shaded region actually stands for those who are clear with stats, it's not a problem. Others might find it a bit difficult. This is error bar. This shows the percentage of values or the possible values or the 95% confidence limit within which the prediction might vary. Now, if you are taking a different sample from the same set, or if you're doing something called bootstrapping, what happens is that your forecast value need not lie in this blue line. Here the blue line is the forecast. So this blue line values are probable to change like this. It is probable to change too much like this. So it is going on increasing in its variance. This indicates that the model is not as such good. Okay, the error bar should not go this wide. Here you can see this width. This is the first point of prediction. This is the second point of prediction. Everywhere the variation in prediction or the changes in prediction are too very far from what it is expected to be. Okay. Plus another point that we have to refer to is in this come down the line. So there are two columns plus few more. Okay, so we'll go with all these two prediction, and it is actually these two blocks that are plotted there. The orange line is the prediction and the green line is this LH unemployment rate UR. Okay, that is what is plotted exactly. So once we go down, you can see from 1995 onwards it started predicting. Okay, it started predicting and also giving interval prediction. That means when it actually predicts as 5.4, the values are probable to change from 4.8 to 5.9. When it predicted as 5.09, the values are probable to range between 1.2 to 8.9. That is too much of a gap or too much of an interval for prediction. Here it is not at all a reliable prediction. That is what it indicates. Further down when we proceed, okay, so with this model what we do is we will not proceed with the model, we will do trial and error over there. Then another point that we need to refer to is, say, one of these values, most of us are familiar with mean square error, root mean square error, or mean absolute error. These are all the values which will also help us along with AIC values. Okay, so it is you might have all heard of RMSE, root mean square value, or MAPE, MAPE, mean absolute percent error. So this root mean square error should be at its minimum for the best data. Like how we said about information criteria, this also should be at its minimum. So that is not happening. I mean, whether it is happening, we need to check. So this value also, let us make a note of 0.48868. Fine. Now let me come to my Word file. Before we finalize with the model, okay. So before we finalize with the model, we are supposed to also check with the various options, because initially itself we have got some problematic values, right? So we are just checking out with which would be a better feasible value. From the correlogram itself, what is the indication here? Basically the problem is that this is not proper data for no, this has got seasonal effect. That is why it is affecting us. That's the reason why it is affecting us so much. Normally from the correlogram we will get a tentative idea about the series. It will not be this very difficult. Okay, I shall and now okay, usually we should be able to get it. Now what we were trying to say is, again, now if we go ahead with the various tests. Okay, so here let me just mention what is the AIC and RMSE value. RMSE values, RMSE value for a 210 model happen to be, AIC is 50.159, and this will substantiate why we have taken a specific model. So we have grounds to say that this is the reason why I went with that model. But previously when we checked with 211, we were getting better values. Okay, it was 47.485. Okay, So let us just give a try with that too. Let's just give a try with that also, since it happened to be better in LHUR when we proceed with it. So here also we are going with the same holdout sample and training sample, okay, training data. Holdout series is also there. So 47.485, 47.485. Now we should check what is the forecast and the RMSE value. So let us go ahead to see the forecast of the series. Now I missed out to explain what is dynamic and static forecast. Dynamic forecast indicates that our prediction is depending on the forecast of the data. Dynamic forecast is used, the dynamic forecast uses forecast values for prediction, whereas static forecast uses actual data for prediction. Dynamic forecast uses, say for example, if I say here, the series, each time the prediction is going with this series itself. The prediction doesn't consider actual series. First value, then using that the second value, using that the third value. So using this prediction data, the remaining holdout sample is being analyzed or being forecast. Static is used when, if we want to predict using the given series itself. Now, the problem arises when we don't have as such, what do you say, when we don't have, say in this example, we had kept holdout sample. Suppose you want to fit it for an upcoming season, upcoming time period, then you don't have actual data for estimation. So we are forced to go with dynamic forecast itself. That is the reason why it was showing, what do you call, by default it is dynamic. By default it goes as dynamic model. That is the reason why by default it goes with a dynamic out of sample. Okay, most of the time it goes with dynamic, because most of the time we will not have a value for prediction and we need to predict for the upcoming 5 or 6 seasons. So that will not happen when you don't have data with you. Okay, so here it is actually showing a much more worse, even though we had some points helping us. Here we can see that the graph is not at all conducive for us. Graph is not at all appealing. Why is the graph not appealing? You can see the actual series is this green line. One moment. Exchange rate and oil price. Dynamic forecast would be used. Any series for that matter. For if you want an upcoming prediction with the series where the data is not available and you're predicting, then it is better to go with dynamic forecasting, because the other one we don't have holdout data. So this series as such shows that even though we had a lot of points that were appealing for us, like AIC value was better, right? AIC value was better, but when we refer to the RMSE value, it is quite high. What is the root mean square value there? I missed that window. What is the root mean square value over there? I think it is 1 point, no, not this. So many windows open now. I'm autocorrelation. One moment, let me close all the other ones. Yeah, I think this is the one. 1.704. So this is a clear indication that this mod 1.704. Is it correct? 1.7047. Yeah. So even though we got an indication that it is better, it is as such not better, because root mean square is more than double that of the previous model. Yes. Yeah. So we are not going to go, even though AIC value was supporting, the model is not good over there. Okay. Then what would be a better model? Let's see. Probably if you go with an analyzed graph, I'll just close this also and then take only the series with the data. Yeah. Okay. So in this case, most probably, if you just take the model and then proceed with univariate time. Yeah. Here I'll tell you now with this here we will not be able to come across a proper series. I'll tell the reason because this is a series which has got seasonal indices with it. Okay, as such there are okay. So this is a case where there are seasonal indices. There was no trend, but there were seasonal values that were playing around. Okay, and you can see that this is a quarterly data. The series has, oh God, there is a lot of disturbance. Okay, so this is a series where there was enough and more of seasonal data. Apart from that error, we have to show any. No, these two would be sufficient, sir. These two would be sufficient. And as such, if we are concluding 1 minute, let us just try to come up with the best model in the given scenario. I think AR1 also will not be sufficient. I think AR2 itself is the best one. AR2, if I remember right, is the best. AR1 wasn't giving. Okay. AR1 is looking better. Okay, let's see. AR1 model. So we are trying with 211 is not working. 110. 110. So in some order we can list it. Okay, our trial, and we get that this is sufficient, and here it is 50.229. Any of the information criteria. Then let us proceed to forecast with error bars or the shaded region. However, the series seems to perform a little better. Now it seems to perform a little more better, and the RMSE value is also best among them, 41714. Similarly, we need to actually check with other series as well. Anyway, MA component, including MA component, is not at all feasible. That we have understood because RMSE is increasing drastically. That is, I told you, because the data that we have taken is not as such conducive for only AR. It doesn't have a trend. Rather, it might be having seasonal component in it. That could be the reason. So we'll try with that. We will just learn seasonal ARIMA and then get back here. So here we can say that among them, this 110 seems to be the best. Maybe we can try one more, like 31, okay, and some few more series like this. And here it is PDQ that we are trying out. So once we have got the series, then we can present it. Okay, and after this, as usual, we are supposed to also perform the various other tests, like what is test of normality. Now here residual normality is a bit doubtful. Yeah, the reason is that because MA component had volatility, so all those tests will fail here. Okay, but however, I hope you got a rough idea about what all to be listed and how to identify the model at its best with the given restriction. So residual analysis, as such, we are supposed to perform and then prepare the residual graph. Okay, that is one point which I missed out last class also. What few of you might be having a doubt, what exactly is residual? So let me show you what is residual. The residuals are, actually speaking, in econometrics, residuals are the heroes of the entire study. It is the residual who will decide whether your model is a good fit or not. The meaning of residual is, let me just indicate it here. If we look at residual analysis, why we keep on telling about residual analysis and few properties is that because last time someone had told me that residuals itself is to be explained. What is actual minus what you predict is called residual. Okay, the actual observations, what is given in the series, actual observations minus predicted values is called residual. Now, if a model is proper, in the sense is a good fit, it is normally called as a proper fit to the data, good fit to the series, the residuals have to follow these conditions. Series, there are three conditions to check. Okay, residuals are supposed to, first point is that it should have normality in it. Normality in the sense, when we test for normality, there is a test that automatically comes in, okay, normality of the data. So 2 points you can show there, the graph of that residual, and also a chi-square test which has to accept the H naught, okay, it should accept the null hypothesis. All goodness of all tests of normality have the same null hypothesis, okay, so that's why I'm writing it universally, it is like that. Hypothesis normality should accept the null hypothesis that residuals are normally distributed. Residuals are normally distributed. That is 1 point. Then, when you plot the autocorrelogram of the residuals, okay, when you plot there is no autocorrelation for the residuals. That means after preparing the residuals, you just plot the correlogram of the residuals. They should not have this significant spikes or patterns in that. Okay. And third is that it should have constant variance. Constant variance, the property of it is called homoskedasticity. So we will say that there is no heteroskedasticity. You will get used to this term probably tomorrow when we are doing heteroskedasticity modeling itself. Okay. There is no heteroskedasticity in the series. This is in the residual series, not just like that the series. In the residuals, there is no heteroskedasticity. So these 3 points are very important. So residual is the difference between, now you can see that residual will be, this is the actual value, this is the predicted value. Difference between them is called residual. If you plot this residuals, then we come to know whether it is normal. That is what we did first. Second graph that we can do is the residual correlogram. Okay. So the residual correlogram seems to be fine, but definitely we are finding seasonality in it. Forget it. For now, we are not looking at it. This is a kind of a pattern where there are no significant spikes for the residuals. Let me just quickly show you how it is. In the same output window, from the same output window, graphs, residual correlogram. Graphs and residual correlogram. Okay. So in this correlogram, we don't find any significant spikes in the initial values. No need to go far. Even if we are going far in the time series up to 19 or 20 lakhs, there are no significant spikes. So we can say that there is no correlation or autocorrelation in the series. So this is what I have presented here in the page here down. I had shown the two graphs. Okay, so one is the normality graph, and second is that residual correlogram. Residual correlogram. Apart from the actual series correlogram, we will also plot the residual correlogram to show that there are no significant spikes in it. And all the three tests we have to write it clearly. So basically, the strength of the paper lies very much in the residual analysis rather than just wrapping up with the model and saying that I have fit a model, it is done. We have to definitely confirm that the residuals do not have much of information left in it. Okay. So that was about, and then we have to also interpret what each of these numbers mean. What does this indicate? What does it indicate by, my God, see the number of windows that I've kept open. Let me close all of it so that I can find the final model that we had used. No, this is also not the one. I just want to see what is the interpretation of it. Yeah, so this was the final model that we thought we will go with. Now, what does it indicate? That is always a point which we would like to. Okay, so Control A, Control C, rich text format itself, let us take. And parameters, we decide on the parameters based on these conditions. So we went with the ARIMA model, right? So when we go with this ARIMA model, here are our values. This is our model. So what, and again, after getting the model, we are also going for forecast that this. What does these numbers indicate? That many a time we miss to write. Okay, so this last block is actually junk. I'm just deleting it. Only this AIC I required, so I have already listed it. I'm going to delete this part of the table as well. And then what is my model? Finally, I have got a model which I can write as Y Okay, so the model, the estimated model is y is equal to minus 0.0132 plus 0.61279 y t minus 1 plus et or epsilon t, e suffix t. This is how we are the estimated model we have come up with. So we need to write properly what does it mean by that, what does it mean by these few numbers. In this, not all are of our concern. Our concern is only this one term, because we are trying to model trend. We are trying to model trend of the series. So trend of the series is very well defined with this coefficient. What does it say? The meaning is that, okay, on a daily basis, suppose it is daily data or it is yearly data, one lag value or every future value or every present data, present value of the series would be will be on an average, not exactly, but on an average 0.61279 units higher than the past value, 1 lag past value. Does it make sense? From the 1 lag past value. See if it makes sense, because ultimately out of doing all this model, our objective should not be just to complete the analysis and present it. We should know what each number means, right? So what that number point, the constant intercept is nothing. We can't help it. We can't help to explain this point 0. Many times it will come meaningless only. So don't bother about it. But we are modeling autoregressiveness of the series. So what does this mean is, suppose yesterday the series, suppose say if this is a sales data, if yesterday's sales was 1, today you can expect 1.612 units. Tomorrow you can expect from this 1.612 an increment of another 0.612. Okay, so that is the benefit out of knowing what is the impact of past value on present. Fine. And if it is negative, suppose this was negative, you can say that present value is going to be 0.61279 units on an average lesser than 1 lakh past value. With that explanation only, a proper report comes to an end, or your conclusion should say what was the impact or what is the trend with which this series is tending to grow, how far it is growing. Okay. So I hope I explained all the concepts that are required and all the kind of theory which are basics for for a normal ARIMA model. Am I kind of clear there? We are going ahead to the next concept. Meanwhile, if there are any specific queries, or else let us proceed to seasonal ARIMA models. Can we progress? Either all or lost or it's fine, let us proceed, whatever it is. Normally in class also we get that kind of a feeling that in class also many times this econometrics is there for our CG students. So many times after teaching for 10 minutes 15 minutes, when we look at them, we see a very pathetic face. They will be like clueless about what we are saying. So if there are anyone who is clueless of it, please post your specific queries so that I can address. That might make more sense. That might definitely make more sense than me repeating the same concepts. Okay. So here we would see what is seasonal ARIMA. Seasonal ARIMA, at times called as SARIMA, is an extension of the autoregressive model, as the name suggests. Autoregressive models, autoregressive, 1 minute. Okay, sure. So the seasonal ARIMA model, it is an extension of the autoregressive model, and we generally don't take it unless our objective is to model the seasonal component, or the data in itself is indicating a pattern that we would like to capture. Okay, So these are the two reasons why we would like to see what is the seasonality. And then when we combine seasonal and ARIMA into it, we get SARIMA model, which will capture both trend of the series, that ARIMA part will take care of trend of the series, seasonal part will take care of seasonality of the series. It is used, yeah, we all have studied in our school, in our college itself, that a time series consists of four components basically. Okay, a time series consists of four components. They are trend, which is a long term tendency. Then there is a seasonal component, like seasonal component, like the purchase of AC. It is not just based on years. We know that there's a specific time of the year where this purchase of AC goes high. Same way when we look at various investments, normally we tend to start with our investments when it is time for tax returns, or when it is time for us to give our plan for the year. So that is where we will also look for it. Or else, when do we see certain kind of advert, or tourism? Tourism is one field which we have to, yeah, that is what, that's what, yes, ma'am. I'm telling about that. So, tourism is not just a pattern that you can expect throughout the year in the similar manner. There definitely seasonality has a major impact. So, there rather than ARIMA, it is better that we go with seasonal ARIMA. Then the other components are cyclical component, which is quite difficult to capture. Seasonality and trend, there are at least standard methods. A cyclical component, there is something called a Fourier method with which you can capture the cyclical variations in the series. And last one is the random error, or the random component, random factor, or the random, what is it called? Four uh, times components, random component, or the irregular factors, irregular or randomness in it. They are the values which are the most irregular, which are the most unexpected factors, unexpected reasons that have. Unlike this pandemic, we cannot take as such because it's almost an year. So, if you are looking at yearly data, yes, obviously there will be irregular factor that is playing a major role. Otherwise, like when a tourism series all on a sudden comes to a dip because of a natural calamity in an area, or due to excess heat in a specific region, there is tourism that is getting affected, or there is a political crisis in a country that the stock market falls. So those are all factors which are unaccountable, unexpected, and all on a sudden the series has taken a change. So apart from that, the other three components are actually manageable. We can model all three. Trend we already learned, and there are two types of models also. One is called additive model, where our yt will be a total of trend plus seasonal plus cyclical plus irregular. Okay, additive models are normally very slow in their growth, and additive models tend to be stationary at level. Most of the time they will achieve stationarity at level, otherwise at first difference itself. Additive models, when there is multiplicative effect of these terms, multiplicative model in the sense, multiplicative models are when these four components have a multiplicative effect on the series. So, the rate at which they grow also will be very, very large. We can easily identify them by referring to the graph. Some of the graphs will just like that go up. So there you will have to do some transformation like log transformation to bring it into an additive model. Your multiplicative data itself will not be, we will not be able to manage to attain stationarity even after one or two differencing. You might have to take a log difference of it, or you will have to see whether there is some other factor that is playing in and try to remove that. Okay, so these are two models which are there, of which cyclical is quite even more difficult to model compared to additive and multiplicative. uh, compared to trend and seasonality. Trend and seasonality can be captured using an ARIMA or a seasonal ARIMA model. Fine. So now I hope roughly when we plot a graph, I hope roughly we have understood it. seasonal ARIMA, the objective is to model seasonal data and to come up with a forecast model. The seasonal part of an AR or MA model will be seen in the seasonal lag of PACF or ACF. Okay, so most of the time when we plot the correlogram, we will find that seasonal pattern to be popping up after few lags. Many a times in the autocorrelogram, in the correlogram, when we see, there may be spikes after few points of very dormant values. All of a sudden you might find spikes at regular intervals. That is an indication of seasonal pattern. So if there are spikes like that, we need to suspect. Secondly, if our objective itself is to capture seasonality of the series, then we have to obviously come up with data which is collected in that manner also. Okay. Then a spike at a lag 12 in ACF, but no other significant spike. This is one indication, okay, in ACF graph. Or exponential decay in seasonal lags in PACF. At lags we find, all on a sudden one dip in certain points. Okay, so let's get to the practical. Probably we'll get a better idea. Now we have to be very careful when we work with seasonal ARIMA model. The reason is that it is not easy to interpret. It is not easy to write the model itself, especially for non-math persons. It will be a little tough to even understand what the model is. But if we need to provide the table and the theoretical model only in the papers, and if we can understand the numbers, that is well and good, that is sufficient. Okay. Now in considering the appropriate seasonal orders for a seasonal ARIMA model, restrict the attention to seasonal lags, because our objective itself is to model that, right? Now modeling procedure is the same as for non-seasonal data. Only thing, we need to select the seasonal ARMA model as well as non-seasonal components. Why? Because at times there may be a trend, and if we don't consider that, we are losing on some information. Okay. A general form of a seasonal ARIMA model has got two parts in it. It's not just one part, it has got two parts in it. First part is our usual ARIMA PDQ. Along with that, there is a capital PQ, PDQ, an uppercase PDQ with M. So when we write uppercase PDQ with M, what this M means is, if it is a monthly data, the M may be 12. If it is quarterly data, M may be 4. If it is weekly data, M may be 7, because we want to see how the weekly pattern varies. Like every Monday is there a pattern, every Tuesday is there a pattern. That is what if we are trying to capture, then obviously M is the 7. M is the value of M is 7. Okay, so this is the first part, stands for trend. Non-seasonal part will model the trend, and the second part will model seasonality of the series. Now the model might look a little complicated because I've used something called as a backshift operator. I'll just explain what is backshift operator. Instead of writing y t minus 1, we will generally write it as b y t. This is one method with which we write lag period. Okay, so one lag can be written as b y t, backshift, one time back in time, 1 point back in time with respect to yt can be written like this. So when we have to write y t minus 2, we will write it as b square and b square yt. Okay, I think in the Word file is a better option for me to write than, because there the superscript, subscript, everything will work properly. Okay, so the backshift operator is before going there, let me just introduce you to, because none of the papers or none of the books will explain it in the other manner how we were writing when it comes to SARIMA modeling. The model will be always explained in terms of a backshift operator. So what is a backshift operator? Let's just have a look at a backshift operator. If I have yt as a series, if I want to explain y t minus 1, y suffix t minus 1, what does it indicate? We write it as b y t. Okay, so that means 1 point back in time, by t. Then if I want to write yt minus 2, if I'm writing yt minus 2, then I'll have to mention it as b square yt. Where is it? Square, yeah, square yt. That's it. Okay, it's simple. It actually makes our work easier to write because we don't have to fit so many suffices, and then easily we can write it. Oh, is it so? Okay, okay, okay. Yes, yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll do that. I'll do that. I thought it is my full screen that I am sharing. That is why. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay. So this is the file. I was just mentioning what is this backshift operator and how it works. So this is whenever we want to write about a past time, instead of writing yt minus 1, t minus 2, if I write b square, it is understood. It's a 2 lag time point. If I write b yt, it is a b, it is 1 lag period. And if I am writing yt minus p, how will it be? Obviously, it will be b to the power p, b to the power p y t minus or y suffix t. Okay, so this is how this is what we just now saw in the PPT also. Let me come back to the PPT and show you how the backshift operator is shown here. Okay, so what it indicates is even the output will be coming in the same manner. So let's just get familiarized with it. In the ARIMA 111 model, what does it indicate is we are dealing with a quarterly data, or seasonality is appearing every quarter. That is why 4 here. AR component, or say the non-seasonal or the trend, has got first differencing required because there was trend in the data. It also requires AR1 and MA component 1 each, that is there. Apart from that, seasonality also, there is what do you mean by 1 here is that seasonally 4 time points of differencing is happening. Seasonally 4 time points of differencing is happening. Even though we are writing 1, it is actually 4 points because the seasonal component is 4. Suppose it is 12, when I write here 1, it means 12. This January is differenced with last January. What is the difference between? Okay, yearly, if you are taking the difference, it is just 2019 and 2018, one time period. 2018 minus 2017, that is the meaning of here, this one. Okay, but when it comes to the one here, suppose we are talking about 4 quarters. This is 2021, we are in we are in 2020 Q4, okay, financial year 2020 Q4. If I talk about Q4 and one time point, it actually I am differencing it with 2020 Q4 minus 2019 Q4. Did I explain it? 4 is the time lag for that seasonality, and if I say about one differencing, it means 2020 Q4 is subtracted from 2019 Q4. We are going 4 time periods back in seasonal. I hope I explained. I'm not sure. Okay. Then, so if you write 1 also is enough. Don't think that we have to write there as 4 because we have 4 as a component. Then we will have our AR component here first defined. AR component, the first part will be for the trend 1 minus 5b, and 1 minus 5 1b to the power 4 will be the seasonal component. Okay, seasonal AR component comes in here. Fine. And then the this is 1 minus b, and 1 minus b to the power 4 is just about the variables. Okay, I know it is going a little, if it is to how to explain it. How to explain it is, can we come to a problem and then solve it so that we may get a better idea? With this theory, when we get the numbers, probably we can write it. Ultimately, what happens is that all of them gets multiplied with each other. These components will get multiplied with each other, and it will look a very complicated model if we are writing. So generally, we will just put the format of the model. After identifying the proper parameters, we write the general form, and we do not write explicitly what is the model that is developed. We will just stop with the table and then write the conclusion for it. Yeah, sample paper I shall download and I'll do that, ma'am. Right now I don't think I have a paper. Tourism one paper was there which I had shown you initially. I'll just see. But there are plenty of papers. Seasonal ARIMA, there are so many papers that are available. Okay. So let's get to work. Otherwise, whatever I explained, we might forget by tomorrow. One seasonal ARIMA we'll do today, and tomorrow we'll do one more so that we'll get a grip over it. And then we'll proceed to heteroscedasticity models. So we are in the Gretel back. Again, I hope I have shared my proper screen. Yes. Okay. So in this, there is one data which was a bit kind of conducive for it, which was initially itself there is something called airline passenger data. The graph was looking good, so I thought we'll go with that. Box-Jenkins series in Gretel repository BJG. Box-Jenkins series G, airline passengers. Okay. So in this series, let me keep my Word file side by side. Okay. So here, if we first point as such, we will refer to, obviously we will refer to our, what do you call, we will refer to descriptive statistics. Yes, of course, we have to. Apart from that, no audio. Why? My audio.
Ma'am, audio is fine, ma'am.
Is it fine? Okay, thank you, sir.
Fine,
Thank you, sir. Yeah, because Dr. Himachalapati sir said it is not audible.
No, ma'am,
Liji,
audible.
the data, Liji, you are talking about the data. What is it? I was, Liji ma'am, the data is BJ. No, what is it? Boxing, forgot. Airlines passenger data. Airlines passenger, Box-Jenkins series, airlines passengers. Yeah. Now, let us first plot and see. When we get this kind of a pattern itself, we need to be getting a clue that it is not just trend, but it is also seasonality. That is why we find patterns. I'm sure all of us remember what is seasonality. They are patterns which recur within an year's time. Within 12 months, when a pattern keeps repeating, we call it a seasonality. It's short-term recurring patterns. Okay, whereas cyclical variations are long-term but repeating patterns. Okay, so oh God. Dr. Himachalapati says he can't hear me, but I'm sure I can because I can see my mic only picking up. Maybe at his end it might be a problem. Okay, let me progress. So when we proceed with it, after seeing the graph, yeah, that's it. Okay, so after seeing the graph itself, we get a clue that yes, we have to capture this particular pattern along with our normal work. So what we usually do is, we instead of okay, for as such, we will not go for descriptive statistics because now we are familiar with it. Graph we saw, it has trend and seasonality. So let us just see what is happening when we grow, when we try stationarity of the series. Okay, so there is definitely trend. We don't have to go with constant. We can go with trend. Okay, in ADF and give OK. So what we find is there is no stationarity. There is no, where do I write it? I'm just thinking. Okay, so there is no stationarity in the series. I'll just pick up that table of stationarity test so that I can show how it will even affect our unit root test. Okay, so here at level the value is minus 2.10078 with a p-value 0.5448. So definitely there is unit root present in it. Now let us see what happens if we go for first differencing. Select the variable and then go for unit root test at first difference. Are we able to get it? No. Even then it has problem, right? the test statistic value is minus 3.00179 with the p-value still higher, 0.1316, which is also not favorable for us. So that means even after first differencing, when we are not getting it, preferably we need to do something else. Okay, so either we go with taking log because there is increment in the data. We can take a log of the series and work with it. Because if you take the natural log of the series and then try, another point that I would suggest is we can take a seasonal difference of the selected variable. Now that we have understood there is seasonality, we can go with seasonal difference of the selected variable. In the click on that variable G and go for add seasonal difference of the selected variable. So we get it. Now let us try to see if this is attaining stationarity variable unit root test. Okay, before we did not see how the pattern is. We didn't see a time series plot for it. There is no trend now. After removing that seasonality, there is no trend also to be seen. So let us, since we are not very sure what we'll do, we'll just check with both of it also, with constant and with trend. Let's see if anywhere we are getting a positive indication, 0, 1. Yeah. So this becomes stationary at level, at the first difference, at seasonal difference. Right? We get difference with respect to seasonality and we are getting it proper. Right? So once you remove the seasonality, what happened? There was no trend also. So it was a seasonality that was dragging the series and going. Now, what is it? Where to go for seasonal difference? It is there only. You just click on that G, add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sixth option. Okay. Now let us see how the correlogram would be. Correlogram of the actual, I hope it is done. Correlogram of the actual series itself, let us first check how it looks. Yeah, this is what we read in the theory that, you get some significant spots or points like, at certain intervals. Here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then again, there is 1 here. So these kind of far away spikes are indications of seasonality. These are indications of seasonality. Then this kind of, this kind of bridge pattern also generally we assume it to be, you can see a kind of a, a pattern, a U kind of a pattern, or it's called a sine curve when you are finding. That is also an indication, sinusoidal curve we call it as. So this kind of a, why I called this a bridge is like, it is just coming down and then going up like a swing and then coming down. So you get a wave pattern. These are all indications of seasonality for playing in both AR and MA, in both AR as well as MA. But how to identify that? When we look at this values also, you can see 1 and 2, see this ACF, PACF, they are significant for 2 spikes. After that, they are not showing significant, but at the 9th point, it is showing significance. 10th, it is showing significance. Then 13th, it is showing significance, right? So why is it like that? This is yearly data and we are also incorporating seasonality in it. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So you can see that beat where there is kind of seasonality. Okay. Hence, we can also just check whether this gives a better idea about it. Not much. It will slightly only vary, but the ACF value changed, but the significance value, the table value did not change much. So here, when we are just plotting the correlogram of seasonally varied data, it shows that it is dampening without much of ACF, MA component in it, but AR component, it is showing significantly up till 1 or 2 lags. Then after a long time, at the 10th point only it is showing. Okay. So these are all the ways with which we roughly get an idea that yes, there is seasonal component we have to incorporate. And the seasonality is coming somewhere in 9, then in 13. So probably at every first quarter, there is some kind of a pattern that is coming. There is an influence. Okay. So what we can do is we can give a try with, again, definitely it is a trial and error as we always do. There are 3-4 points that we will have to keep checking. One is our information criteria, second is MSE value. Before that, what is the significance of the coefficients? All three things we have to check. So today I'll just introduce and then probably we'll stop. We will do seasonal ARIMA properly, and I can show you how to write the interpretation also, because in a hurry if we do, it may not work. So what can be done is, we'll take the as such the series. We are not taking a difference value. We are taking the series as such. Okay. And we found that the series as such did not have an MA component in the non-seasonal pattern. It was attaining stationarity at level. That is what we remember. Okay. When we did seasonal differencing, we found that the series was not having a problem. We will do trial and error again. Okay. Or else we can say that the actual series had a trend. Maybe we can compare it after the first trial. AR component, let us keep it as 2, because there were 2 significant spikes initially. Of course, there is one differencing that we had done, and MA. Let us give a try. So the seasonal component is already here. That is all. Okay, in this complete dialog box, these are the variations that we can do. Apart from this, what is there is something called X12 ARIMA or ARIMAX modeling, which talks about if you have an exogenous variable, if you have an external variable that is playing in. Yeah. Here we can see that, I hope all are with me. I just went for AR100, AR100, MA210. Not to MA, it is seasonal, Sarima seasonal 210. Okay. So I got a model like this. What does it indicate? Let's see. I know things would go a bit complicated. Of course it will be. But we need to, right? We have decided to go with it, so let us, I think it is better to go with Control A, Control C as entire thing, and then delete unwanted parts. Yeah, so here we can obviously, first point would be that, all of them are very, very significant. What are they? You can see that this is here we had phi 1. This is our AR1 coefficient. This is a caps lock phi 1. Okay, so this is our seasonal AR1. Okay, this is our seasonal AR1 that is present. Then second one is seasonal AR2. Seasonal AR2. Got it? So this is a model. What we have derived just now is SARIMA 100, and then for the second part, seasonal component, what we did is 210. This is what we tried to derive, and we have got it. Not sure whether we are through, because as we did in the previous case, we have to do little variations here and there and check whether there is an MA component that is also significant. If that MA component is significant, is our IC or MAC values fine? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll wind up now, sir. Okay, and here I shall do that. One moment. I'll just see what is the forecast. Never think that forecast is possible only when you have a holdout sample. Not necessary. If you want to see the RMSE and MACE and MAPE values, we can do that. See, it looks like a very good fit. The model seems to be a good fit there. And the RMSE value as of now is 13.098. MAPE, RMSE, these two are commonly seen than mean absolute error, mean absolute percent error, MAPE, and root mean square error, RMSE. These two are normally considered to be points that are of reference for accuracy of a model. Okay, so this trial and error, I think we shall do it tomorrow. I'll share a file which will properly fit in. Okay, this file, or otherwise we can go with the same file. We will do a trial and error and then fix the best data. Okay, and then we have to also write the interpretation. Here this is understood that when we say AR, the trend of the series is increasing with a magnitude of 0.74. The trend of the series is going with a value of 0.7412. Okay. Whereas seasonally, this airline passengers, when we look at the quarterly data, every quarter there is a negative indication. Quarter wise, one quarter is negatively influencing the other quarter, at least in the first part of it, at least in the first component, it is showing a negative influence of the seasonal component. So even though the values are tending to grow all through, whether there's a trend that is going up, seasonal influence, like one season to the next season, we are not finding a good growth. As such, if this season was good in airlines, etc., we should generally find a better position of airline travels for the next season during the same time. That is how even the airline company would be preparing themselves. But here it is found that there is something that is negatively influencing, and that particular season it is getting negative indication or say negative pull or a correlation from last year to this year. This particular airlines is having a problem. Okay. Or it could be like, there may be other seasons where they are increasing, but they are not impactful. They are not impactful. One season which we found very influential is, one every fourth time, how is it behaving? Every fourth period, that means Q1 to 2020 Q1 to 2019 Q1. 2019, from 2019 Q1 it has come down to when it came to 2020 Q1. Same way from 2019 Q2 to 2020 Q2 also there is a fall. From 2019 Q3 to 2020 Q3 there is a fall. That is the meaning of it. Okay, if we try to understand. So this indicates it is not a very promising situation for the airlines. The seasonal impact of this particular data indicates that there has to be something that is to be rectified so that we can improve on the passengers. Okay. So I think I'll just wind up today what also sir had told, just to wind up with all whatever we have done. 11 or 110 or 210 in Gretel. In the sense, I didn't follow that. How to take it in Gretel means when we are progressing, and then of course we have to do all the residual analysis and all other tests in the same manner, that is there. So one full process like how we did today in the beginning, we will do one full of Sarima tomorrow, like for calculation. Estimation, I think what ma'am meant is estimation. So here in the univariate time series, I am not getting it. One moment, let me see what is the chat. Estimation part, yeah. So in the estimation, once you decide which is the model, once you decide that you're proceeding with the ARIMA model, we can change it over here, AR1 or 2. Oh, how to fix it, that we have to keep changing. Roughly we got a spike, a single spike initially, and then the rest of it were in there. MA component was not there for the non-seasonal part. Seasonality, when we checked, we are finding that there is a pattern after 9 and then 13. So we feel that there is definitely a seasonal impact of it, and yeah, and that is the reason why we kept it like this. And one point is that we generally don't increase both of it beyond 2. 2 is the maximum lag that we keep. How much ever divided a data is, even if it is monthly data, like 12 is the seasonality there, we don't increase both the what do you call differencing together. It's ARIMA also, yes. But most of the time we will be able to fit it using one of the model that we have got an intuition from our graph itself. Most of the time it will be very close to it. But why we are doing trial and error is to convey to the convey to the reviewer that I have checked with the nearest models possible and I found this is the best feasible. Most of the other softwares for that matter, they can check a series of parameters together. P from one end to the other, D from one end to the other, Q from one end to the other. So all of it can be done in one stretch and then AIC values can be listed down. Okay. So that is how it has to go. Kashmira ma'am, I shall just complete it and then send to you. That will be better. And I'll remove Sarima from it and I'll share. I'll surely send it in the group. Okay, by tomorrow morning itself I shall send only Arima with the complete thing, because the one Arima which I kept, there is a little overlap between the terms that I have used. Sarima I will not send it today. I am not going to share that file today. We will complete one complete analysis tomorrow, first half. Maybe it will take 30 minutes for us to decide on the model and to write an interpretation. Then tomorrow we can start with what is the Arch-Garch models. It is called Arch-Garch models, heteroskedasticity models, and we can progress. I think we'll stop now. Okay. As we progress, actually the complexity slightly increases, but through practice and by reading other papers, we will be able to get a better picture. Okay. So I'm pretty sure we will be able to write. I think the result of Sarima is 100,220. Two differencing. Okay. Oh, is it so? Okay. Okay, Sangeeta ma'am. Good trial. Okay, could be. I did not work with that series as such. I had actually just checked it. I had written it also somewhere over here, but I don't remember exactly. Let's see. Anyway, we will write the possibilities and confirm which model will be the best. Anyway, it will not go very far. You don't think that it will go to 5, 10, 15 and all. It will be very close, because as I said in the beginning, they are all short-term models. Oh, is it so? Okay, great ma'am. Great. Without trial and error, Nitish sir, if we want to fix a model, yes, we can. If you want to say that there is a literature which says this model is best, and for me, if you don't want to compare, yeah, then you can go with that ACFP. I mean, with our correlogram, fix it by referring to the graph and proceed. If you don't want to do trial and error, otherwise there is no other method with which we can do it time series analysis. Okay. So thank you all. See you tomorrow. I think we'll end this. Raju sir, shall we?
Ma'am. Yeah, good evening all. Thank you, resource person Dr. Jyothi Manoj, Associate Professor, Department of Stats, Christianity College, for your information session on DAFIC. And happy Women's Day for all the women participants. Happy Women's Day, ma'am. Resource person.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you all the participants for your active participation. Tomorrow, as usual, at 5:20 you could log in. Yes. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Ghosh, yes, sir. Host could end the session.